Peace be upon you, my dear companions of the heart. Today, once again, we stand together, shoulder to shoulder, heart to heart. What we see on our screens is not just a battle or a conquest story. It is the struggle of a nation being reborn. Every move Osman Bay makes, every prayer whispered by Gonka Hatun, every glance shared by Orhan and Aladdin tells the story of who we truly are. Today, I won't just show you a few scenes, I will bring you the resistance of a people, a mother's heartfelt prayer, a brother's sacrifice, and a leader's roar for freedom. If you feel that you, too, are part of this honored journey, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your voice in the comments. Because here, we are not just watching a series, we are witnessing the rise of a generation carrying the same spirit. So, let's take a step together into the story of those who refused to kneel and never bowed their heads. Let's begin. Deep within the forest, they finally faced each other. Osman Bay stood before Gladius and Gonka. His eyes were sharp, his voice strong, and his heart burned with fire. He moved closer, step by step, and spoke words that echoed across the clearing. "If you do not pull your hands away from my state and my family," he said, narrowing his eyes and stepping forward, "I will break your hands." His words crashed down like thunder. "I will flood over you," he warned. Gladius instinctively pulled back, and for the first time, fear flickered in Gonka's eye. They realized then that Osman Bay was not just a leader, he was a man who conquered with his heart and shattered mountains with his faith. And now, for the sake of his people and his family, he wasn't just drawing his sword, he was offering his very being, with every word spreading through the air like a storm. Because Osman Bay's cause was never just for a tribe, it was the struggle of an entire nation. That day, everyone realized, those who stood before Osman Bay would either kneel or be utterly defeated. Deep inside Orhan Bay's heart, he knew that brotherhood was written with blood and could never be erased by hatred. Fueled by the fire of loyalty towards his brother, Orhan set off on his path. He remembered clearly the day when death was close, and Aladdin Bey had risked his own life to save him from the Mongol commander Altyn. Now, it was his turn to repay that debt. He vowed to rescue his brother from the enemy's hands. The road ahead was treacherous, filled with hidden traps. The forest around him no longer carried the silence of nature, it held the chilling stillness of death. Yet Orhan Bey's steps were guided not by fear, but by faith, knowing that a debt of brotherhood could only be repaid with one's life, not gold or wealth. It was along this perilous path that he came across Gonka Hatun, her body weakened by the wounds she had suffered while escaping the Mongols. Despite the pain of the arrow lodged in her back, she did not hesitate. She told Orhan where Aladdin was held. Looking straight into his eyes, she gave him the information he needed. In that moment, Orhan's heart burned even stronger with purpose. His mission was now clear. He would bring his brother back, free him from the Mongol dungeons, and reunite him with his family and homeland. No matter how strong the enemy, brother's heart could overpower 1,000 foes. For Orhan Bey, this was not merely a rescue mission. It was a sacred journey. Promise sealed with blood, bond of brotherhood honored with pride. He would live by the values he believed in, lifting his brother from where he had fallen, never turning away from his brother's suffering or tears. For we know well, among Turks, brother is held dearer than life itself. As Orhan fought his way through, leaving enemy after enemy defeated behind him, he finally reached Aladdin. Though Aladdin stood shackled and weary, his spirit remained unbroken. His eyes showed not exhaustion, but a steadfast faith. And when he saw his brother standing before him, the sternness in his gaze softened into a warm light. As Orhan Bey quickly untied the chains binding Aladdin, both of their hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the overwhelming emotions of reunion, gratitude, and the unbreakable bond of brother. Aladdin lifted his head, looked at his brother, and with a voice thick with emotion, spoke, "Orhan, you are the one I prayed for in the darkest nights, the hope I clung to when I was trapped in despair. You came. With you, my sun has risen, and my darkness has faded." Orhan gently placed a hand on Aladdin's shoulder. The fearless warrior who had never wavered on the battlefield now had tears quietly gathering in his eyes. He answered, "You once held your sword for me. You risked your life without hesitation. Now it was my turn, brother." Brotherhood means never turning your back. It means reaching out to those whose blood and soul are one with yours. They both fell silent for a moment, only the beating of their hearts could be heard. Then Aladdin slowly knelt, bowed his head to the ground, and said, "I owe you no debt, Orhan. We are brothers. Gratitude has no place between us. Brotherhood, for us, is a sacred trust from Allah. We protect it, fear to lose it, and if needed, we lay down our lives for it." Orhan leaned down, lifted Aladdin by his forehead, and whispered, "Come, my brother. This is not the time for tears. The path back to the tribe is waiting for us." As they began to walk side by side, leaving danger behind and facing whatever challenges lay ahead, their shoulders touched, their spirits united. These two hearts, these two warriors, would, with Allah's will, overcome every cruelty and light up every darkness with the power of their brother. Meanwhile, Gonka Hatun, weakened from blood loss, collapsed to the ground. The wound in her back burned with pain, and her breath came in short gasps, but her eyes still searched the surroundings with hope. In her heart, a single prayer echoed, "O Allah, please let me reach Orhan Bay, please let Aladdin Bey be saved." From a distance, two figures noticed her trembling form, Bala Hatun and Nilufer Hatun. Bala Hatun rushed to Gonka's side, kneeling down, cradling Gonka's head in her lap. "My brave girl, hold on a little longer. We are here. We won't leave you behind," she whispered. Nilufer Hatun immediately tended to the wound, acting not as a stranger, but as a sister who had loved and cared for her all her life. Gonka turned her weak gaze toward Bala Hatun and whispered, "May Orhan Bey and Aladdin Bey's path stay clear." Bala Hatun fought back her tears, knowing this was not the time for sorrow. She bent down and gently kissed Gonka's forehead. "My daughter, you are one of our brave ones. Whether you fall as a martyr or continue to live, your name will remain forever in our hearts." With all her strength, Nilufer Hatun lifted Gonka. By saving her, they weren't just saving a life, they were preserving the honor of a tribe, a nation, an entire community. Because the women of the founding era were not merely keepers of the hearth, they were the ones who needed the spirit of an empire. And Gonka Hatun, like a silent prayer and a living legend, was carried on their shoulders with all the dignity she deserved. As Bala Hatun and Nilufer Hatun carefully carried Gonka Hatun back to safety, every step they took felt like carrying the weight of an entire nation's hope. The forest around them was thick with shadows, and even though danger lurked behind every tree, their hearts were steady. Because they knew, the fight was never only fought with swords, it was fought with loyalty, faith, and sacrifice. Gonka's head rested against Bala Hatun's chest, her breathing shallow but steady. She whispered prayers under her breath, offering her last strength not for herself but for the cause she believed in. Meanwhile, Orhan Bey and Aladdin Bey pressed forward. Though the road was treacherous, they no longer feared what lay ahead. Side by side, shoulder to shoulder, they moved through the forest, their steps light but determined. Every glance they exchanged carried unspoken promises. Never again would they let the enemy drive a wedge between them. Never again would they allow darkness to consume their home. Their swords were ready, but even more powerful was the bond that tied them together, a bond no enemy could ever break. At the edge of the forest, where the trees thinned and the path opened toward their homeland, a group of warriors waited. The faithful Alps, sent by Osman Bay, stood watch, eyes sharp, hands firm on their weapon. When they spotted Orhan and Aladdin emerging from the misty woods, a roar of relief echoed through the tree. They rushed forward, surrounding the brothers with protection and pride. The moment Aladdin stepped onto the open path again, still chained but standing tall, every man present felt their hearts swell with pride and purpose. But the fight was not yet over. From beyond the hills, dust rose. Mongol riders, realizing their prey was slipping from their grasp, advanced with ruthless speed. Orhan Bey immediately placed himself between the approaching threat and his brother. Without hesitation, the Alps formed a shield around them. Swords were drawn, shields were lifted, and prayers were whispered into the winds. This was more than a skirmish, it was a declaration. No brother would be left behind, no sacrifice would be forgotten. As the first Mongol arrow sliced through the air, Orhan Bey's voice rang out, "Today, we fight not for land or riches. We fight for blood, for honor, for the promises we made to each other under Allah's gate." The clash that followed shook the earth. Blades met blades, shields cracked under heavy blows, but the hearts of Osman's sons and their comrades never wavered. In the thick of battle, Aladdin, despite his weakened state, picked up a fallen sword. He swung it with the strength left in his arms, standing side by side with his brother. Even in chains, even battered, he fought, not because he had to, but because brotherhood demanded it. Together, they cut through the enemy ranks, not with fear, but with the fire of belief burning inside. Far behind the lines, Bala Hatun and Nilufer Hatun, along with other women of the tribe, tended to the wound. They worked swiftly, their hands steady, their hearts brave. Gonka Hatun, though fading fast, smiled weakly when she heard the distant sound of their men fighting. She knew they would win, not because they were many, but because their cause was just. She whispered one last prayer, her lips barely moving, entrusting her soul to Allah and her dreams to her brothers in arms. As the battle wore on, Orhan and Aladdin pushed forward with their warriors, scattering the Mongols who dared to stand against them. Finally, when the dust settled and silence fell over the field, the brothers stood victorious. They looked around at their comrades, battered but unbroken. They had not only saved each other but preserved the dignity of an entire nation. Orhan Bay turned to his brother, placed a firm hand on his shoulder, and said, "We are not just brothers by blood, Aladdin. We are brothers in fate, brothers in cause." Aladdin, still breathing heavily, managed a tired but genuine smile. Together, they knew, their journey was far from over. Many more storms awaited, many more battles loomed ahead. But as long as they stood together, no darkness would be too deep, no enemy too strong. And so, with hearts anchored in faith and eyes set on the horizon, the sons of Osman returned home. Behind them, they left a battlefield. Ahead of them, they carried the hopes of a nation that would one day rise to change the world.